A routine grocery run in Phoenix. A mother's hands in the air. A single gunshot. And in 60 seconds, the footage of Dr. Anya Sharma's death reached her father, the one man who commands America's most lethal war machine. The Arizona sun was a merciless hammer, beating down on the asphalt of the strip mall parking lot. It bleached the color from everything, turning the world into a shimmering haze of white and gray. Dr. Anya Sharma felt the heat radiate through the windshield of her car, the air conditioning fighting a losing battle. She'd only run in for sparkling water and a specific brand of mango sorbet her 8-year-old son, Leo, adored. A simple errand. As she pulled out of her parking space, the sudden flash of red and blue lights filled her rearview mirror. Her heart didn't pound, it simply tightened, a familiar, weary clench. She was a black woman in a luxury sedan. This was a drill she knew by heart. Anya pulled over smoothly, the engine humming quietly. She rolled down her window, the oppressive heat instantly flooding the cool cabin. 2 officers approached, their movements stiff and deliberate. The senior one, Sergeant Cole Vance, had a face like chiseled granite and eyes that seemed to see a threat before they saw a person. His partner, Officer Rick Galloway, was younger, with a nervous energy that made him seem more dangerous, not less. "License and registration," Vance said, his voice flat, devoid of courtesy. "Of course, officer," Anya replied, her tone calm and even. She had dedicated her life to studying AI ethics, to understanding how systemic bias could be coded into the very machines meant to serve us. She knew the de-escalation playbook better than they did. "My wallet is in my handbag on the passenger seat, and the registration is in the glove compartment. May I have your permission to reach for them?" Vance's eyes narrowed. "Just get them." Anya moved slowly, deliberately. She retrieved her wallet, her fingers brushing against a photo of Leo tucked inside. She handed her license over. Vance glanced at it, then back at her. A flicker of something, annoyance. Disbelief, crossed his face. "Dr. Anya Sharma?" "Yes, that's me." "Stay in the car," he grunted, walking back to his patrol vehicle. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Anya could feel Galloway's eyes on her, a heavy, scrutinizing weight. Across the lot, a teenager was flying a high-end drone, its camera lens glinting in the sun as it swooped and soared, capturing stunningly clear 4K footage of the sprawling Phoenix landscape. He was just a hobbyist, testing his new toy. He had no idea he was about to document an execution. Vance returned, his posture even more rigid. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the vehicle." "For what reason, officer?" Anya asked, her voice still steady, but the knot in her chest tightened further. "We have a report of a vehicle matching this description involved in a hit-and-run," Vance lied, the words falling easily from his lips. Anya knew it was a pretext. She complied, exiting the car with her hands held up and open, palms forward. A gesture of peace. A plea. "I assure you, you have the wrong person. My son is waiting for me at home." "She's reaching." Galloway suddenly shouted, his hand flying to his holster. Anya froze. She wasn't reaching. Her hands were in the air. But in that split second, she saw the narrative being written. The justification being built. "My hands are up," she said, her voice a clear, resonant bell in the oppressive heat. "I am unarmed." The shot was a deafening crack that shattered the afternoon's stillness. Anya stumbled backward. A bloom of crimson, shockingly bright, spread across the front of her white linen shirt. It looked like a desert poppy, beautiful and violent. Her handbag slipped from her shoulder, the mango sorbet tumbling out and melting instantly on the scorching pavement. Her body convulsed once, a final, silent protest, and then she was still. The drone hovered, its gimbal silently adjusting, its lens capturing every horrific detail. Within 30 seconds, its automated software, designed to back up footage in case of a crash, uploaded the 4K video to a secure cloud server. 30 seconds after that, an algorithm within that cloud, part of a top-secret Pentagon program called Aegis Family Protocol, detected a match. The facial recognition software identified Dr. Anya Sharma. The system cross-referenced her as a Tier 1 Assets immediate family. Alarms, silent but urgent, blared across a dozen terminals in a windowless command center buried deep beneath Arlington. 60 seconds after the shot was fired, the video was in the encrypted inbox of the most powerful military leader in the free world. In the icy chill of the war room, General Kailan Sharma watched his daughter die. Again, and again, and again, on 10 different screens, from 10 different angles provided by the drone's crystal-clear footage. He saw her hands in the air. He heard her calm, rational voice. He saw the lie in the officer's eyes. He saw the life drain from his brilliant, beautiful child on a sun-scorched patch of asphalt in Phoenix, Arizona. An aide, a young colonel with trembling hands, approached him. "Sir, the National Guard has been alerted." "The DOJ." General Sharma didn't turn. His voice, when it came, was terrifyingly quiet. It was the voice he used to command fleets and move armies. "No," he said. "Not the Guard. Not the DOJ. Me." "General, that's a breach of protocol. It's tantamount to—" "She was my daughter," the general interrupted, his voice like cracking ice. He finally turned, and the aide saw a storm in his eyes that no foreign enemy had ever managed to conjure. "Lock down the city. Military protocol override. I want a ghost garrison in Phoenix by sunrise. And I want those 2 officers. This is not a civilian matter anymore. This is a threat against the United States." Night fell on Phoenix not with a gentle fade, but with the sudden, heavy blanket of a desert sky. Under the cover of that darkness, the city began to change. It wasn't an invasion, it was an infiltration, silent and absolute. A convoy of unmarked, matte black transport vehicles, their engines emitting a low, predatory hum, moved down the I-10. They didn't use flashing lights, they didn't need to. Every traffic signal for miles was greenlit by an unseen hand. Cellular service in a 10-mile radius around the shooting site became spotty, then died altogether. Local law enforcement radios crackled with static. A flight of commercial airliners was mysteriously rerouted, their pilots told of atmospheric interference. From high above, satellites belonging to the National Reconnaissance Office pivoted, their powerful lenses focusing on a single city in the American Southwest. General Sharma had deployed a ghost garrison. The next morning, Phoenix Mayor Isabella Flores, a sharp, ambitious woman who had built her career on navigating the city's complex politics, walked into chaos. Her chief of staff, a man usually unflappable, looked pale. "They've shut us out," he said, holding up a tablet displaying a dozen failed communication attempts. "The FAA isn't talking. The state police are being told to stand down. Every inquiry we make hits a digital wall with a Department of Defense seal on it." "A seal? What the hell is going on?" Flores demanded, her voice echoing in her spacious office overlooking the city. "Did the governor authorize this? Is this the National Guard? No. This is something else. The order came from the Pentagon. It's classified under a Tier 1 National Security Directive." Mayor Flores stared at him, the implications washing over her like a cold wave. Tier 1. That wasn't for civil unrest. That was for acts of war. Over a police shooting? Who was this woman? While the city's leadership reeled in confusion, grief had found a quiet, suffocating home in a suburban townhouse. Anya's younger sister, Zara Sharma, sat on the couch, staring at a news report that called the incident tragic and under investigation. The words were meaningless. She had seen the video. Everyone had. A leak from an anonymous source had sent the drone footage screaming across the internet. Beside her, 8-year-old Leo was silent. He hadn't spoken a word since Zara had told him his mother wasn't coming home. He sat at the small kitchen table, a box of crayons and a piece of paper in front of him. He wasn't crying. He was just drawing. He drew a big, bright sun in one corner and a tiny, dark car in the other. In the middle, he drew a stick figure of his mom, but instead of a smile, she had a red scribble on her chest. The doorbell rang. Zara ignored it, but it rang again, persistent. She dragged herself to the door and opened it to find her father standing on the porch. General Anya Sharma was not in uniform. He wore simple gray slacks and a black polo shirt. There were no stars on his shoulders, no medals on his chest. There was only a grief so profound it seemed to pull all the light from the doorway into it. He looked older than he had just 2 days ago, his face a mask of controlled agony. He stepped inside, his eyes immediately finding Leo. He walked past Zara as if in a trance and knelt by his grandson. "Hey, champ," he said, his voice rough with unshed tears. Leo looked up, his eyes wide and empty. He held up his drawing. "I made mommy a poppy," he whispered, his first words in 24 hours. The general's control finally fractured. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. He pulled the small boy into a fierce hug, burying his face in his grandson's hair. "She loved poppies," he choked out. Zara watched them, her own heart breaking anew. She saw the two halves of her family, the innocent child trying to process the unthinkable, and the powerful soldier grappling with a pain no weapon could avenge. "Dad, what is happening?" she asked, her voice a bare whisper. "The news, the military, it feels like the world is ending." General Sharma looked up, his eyes clearing with a terrifying resolve. He gently set Leo down and stood, once again the commander. "The world isn't ending, Zara," he said, his voice low and hard as steel. "It's being corrected. They didn't just kill a civilian. They executed the daughter of a 4-star general. They have awakened a force they cannot comprehend. And I will not rest until the entire rotten system that allowed this to happen is burned to the ground." Luke Air Force Base, just west of Phoenix, had transformed overnight. Its normal operations of training fighter pilots ceased. It was now the nerve center for Operation Retribution, the unofficial name given to General Sharma's personal war. The base's most secure hangar, typically reserved for stealth aircraft, now housed a different kind of weapon, an elite, multidisciplinary task force. They were the general's scalpels. There was a former NSA cryptographer, a team of behavioral analysts from the DIA, and a quiet, unassuming cyberforensics expert named Jianli, a man who could make servers sing. They answered to no one but Sharma. Their mission was not justice in the traditional sense. It was deconstruction. The officers' official statements are textbook, one of the analysts reported, her voice crisp in the cool, climate-controlled hangar. They claimed Dr. Sharma made a furtive movement. They feared for their lives. Their body cams, conveniently, suffered a simultaneous malfunction moments before the shooting. "Ignore their words," Sharma commanded from a central console, his eyes fixed on a massive screen displaying the officers' digital lives. "I want their data. Social media, financials, known associates. I want to know who they are when they take off the badge." Jianli worked silently in the corner, his fingers flying across a holographic keyboard. Within hours, he had peeled back their digital skin. "Sir," he said, his voice calm but tight. "I have something." On the main screen, he projected a series of images pulled from encrypted forums and private social media groups. Sergeant Vance at a barbecue, wearing a t-shirt that read, 6 Rules of Policing, 1, Go Home Alive. Officer Galloway in a private chat, using racial slurs to describe a previous arrestee. There were dozens of citizen complaints against both, all dismissed. A pattern of aggression, bias, and impunity. "This is the rot," Sharma murmured. But this is just the symptom. The real breakthrough came hours later. Jianli had been meticulously reconstructing the data from the officer's patrol car and the precinct servers. "General, you need to see this," he called out, his voice sharp with discovery. He isolated the body cam files. They didn't just malfunction. They were wiped. But the wipe is sloppy. Amateurish. It happened post-incident, on the precinct server. He paused, bringing up a complex string of code. But this is the interesting part. The dashcam footage from the car is different. It's missing exactly 30 seconds of audio, right before they initiated the stop. And this deletion, this was not amateur. This was professional. The digital signature has been routed through a high-level encryption proxy. It's designed to look like a standard data transfer, but it's a surgical strike. Someone cleaned the scene before the scene was even cold. A heavy silence fell over the hangar. This was no longer about two rogue cops. A professional data wipe meant a coordinated cover-up. It meant someone with access and authority knew what was going to happen, or moved instantly to contain it. Just then, an aide rushed in. "Sir, we have an incoming priority call. It's the Deputy Attorney General from the DOJ." Sharma waved a dismissive hand. "Put him on screen." The face of a stern, bureaucratic man appeared. "General Sharma, I'm calling to inform you that the Department of Justice is formally taking over the investigation into the death of Dr. Anya Sharma. We demand you release Officers Vance and Galloway into federal custody and cease all military operations in Phoenix." General Sharma allowed a cold, thin smile to touch his lips. "Mr. Davies, thank you for your concern. However, this is no longer a simple police matter. Dr. Sharma was a lead consultant for Ether Dynamics, a primary contractor on the military's Celestial Shield satellite program. Her death is now being investigated as a potential breach of national security involving a defense asset." The deputy AG was stunned into silence. "A national security breach?" "That's correct," Sharma said smoothly, the lie as precise as the data wipe. "Until our investigation is complete, all evidence, including the officers, remains under the purview of the Department of Defense. Any interference will be considered an obstruction of a military inquiry. Is that understood?" The call ended. The lie had bought him time. He turned back to Jian Li. "Find out who cleaned that footage," he ordered, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Trace that signature. I don't care if it leads to the local precinct or to the White House. Find them." The digital breadcrumb trail left by the data wipe was faint, designed to vanish into the vast noise of the internet. But Jian Li and his team were relentless. For 2 days, they followed the ghost in the machine, through layers of encrypted proxies and firewalls, across 3 continents. Finally, they found its source. It wasn't a government server or a police precinct. It was a sleek, glass and steel corporate headquarters in Silicon Valley. The home of OmniLex Solutions. OmniLex, General Sharma read from the profile on the main screen. They provide data-driven policing solutions to over 100 jurisdictions. Predictive crime mapping, suspect risk assessment algorithms, and secure data management. They manage Phoenix PD's entire data infrastructure, Sir, Jian Li confirmed. The deletion command originated from a terminal inside their corporate HQ, authorized by a senior executive. The conspiracy was taking shape. It wasn't just a cover-up, it was a service provided. OmniLex wasn't just a contractor, they were partners in crime. The CEO of OmniLex was a man named Julian Croft, a charismatic tech mogul who graced the covers of business magazines, preaching about a future where algorithms made policing safer and more efficient. At that moment, he was in London, delivering a keynote speech on the ethics of artificial intelligence. "Get him," Sharma said, his voice flat. "Sir, he's in the UK. We can't just," an aide began. "I didn't ask for an extradition hearing," the general cut in. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me the director of MI6. Tell him a British national is about to be implicated in an act of espionage on US soil involving a compromised defense asset. Tell him we are invoking a special intelligence provision." We are bringing Mr. Croft home. Less than 12 hours later, Julian Croft was pulled from a 5-star hotel in Mayfair by discreet men in sharp suits. He was bundled onto a private Gulfstream jet, and by the time the sun rose over Arizona, he was sitting in a cold, featureless interrogation room at Luke Air Force Base. The smug charisma had evaporated, replaced by a sheen of panicked sweat. General Sharma entered the room alone. He didn't sit. He stood over Croft, an imposing silhouette. "You're making a grave mistake, General," Croft blustered, trying to reclaim some semblance of control. "I have lawyers. I have contracts with your government." "You had contracts," Sharma corrected, his voice dangerously soft. He slid a tablet across the table. On it was the undeletable log of the data wipe, with a timestamp and the digital signature of Croft's own chief technology officer. "You provide a service, Mr. Croft. A misconduct mitigation service. You use your algorithms to flag potentially problematic officers, and when they cross the line, you clean up their digital messes for a fee, paid by their police unions into your offshore accounts. A neat, tidy, profitable little loop of corruption." Croft's face went pale. "But you made a mistake with Anya Sharma," the general continued, his voice dropping lower. "Your predictive algorithm flagged her. Why? Because she drove a nice car in a certain zip code? Because she had a prior, baseless complaint filed against her by a disgruntled neighbor? Your system labeled her a high-risk interaction. It primed Vance and Galloway to see a threat where there was none. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, Mr. Croft. It was a statistical probability, engineered by your code." That's not true," Croft stammered. "The algorithm is just a tool. It's a weapon." Sharma roared, slamming his hand on the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "And you sold it to the highest bidder. You helped them cover up my daughter's murder. You are an accessory." Croft finally broke. "It was just a standard procedure. The department has it on retainer. They called, said an incident with a flagged individual went bad, and they needed a data scrub. We just did our job." "Your job?" Sharma leaned in, his face inches from Croft's. "Your job was to build a system that put a target on my daughter's back. And for that, you will not see a courtroom. You will be tried by a military tribunal as an enemy combatant who compromised the security of the United States. You will be the end of Omnilex. You will be a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms for the next 50 years. Now, you are going to tell me everything. You are going to give me the names of every officer, every politician, every union boss who is part of this network. Your life as you know it is over. The only choice you have left is how you spend the rest of it." Julian Croft's confession cracked the conspiracy wide open. He gave them names, accounts, and dates, detailing a vast network of corruption that Omnilex had fostered. But one question remained, a question that haunted General Sharma's every waking moment: why Anya? Was it truly random? A tragic convergence of a racist cop and a biased algorithm? Or was there more? His gut, honed by decades of intelligence work, told him there was another layer. The task force turned its full attention to Anya's life, specifically her work. As a consultant for Ether Dynamics, she had top-level clearance and was auditing the security protocols of the next-generation Celestial Shield satellite network. They combed through her work logs, her emails, her reports. Everything was pristine, professional. There was no red flag. "It doesn't make sense, sir," Jianli said, frustration etched on his face after a sleepless night. If she found something, she would have reported it through official channels. There's no record of any such report. Anya was brilliant, Sharma said, more to himself than to the room. But she was also careful. She knew how systems work. She also knew how they fail. If she found something truly dangerous, she wouldn't have trusted the official channels. Not right away. He thought of his daughter. He remembered teaching her to play chess when she was just a child. She never made a direct attack unless she had already fortified her defenses and planned 3 moves ahead. She would create a diversion, a feint, to draw your attention while she set her real trap. Check her personal servers, the general ordered. Not her work files. Look for something that doesn't belong. A file with an odd name. A piece of code that seems out of place. The team dove into the terabytes of data from Anya's private cloud, family photos, academic papers, music playlists. It was a digital map of a life cut short. After hours of searching, a junior analyst found something. It was a small, heavily encrypted data packet hidden within the metadata of a photo of Leo at the Grand Canyon. It was named Rook_E8. It's a chess notation, Sharma said instantly, his heart beginning to pound. It was the final move in a famous game they had studied together, a move known as the Immortal Game's Sacrifice. A queen sacrifice to ensure victory. The password, try the Immortal Game. The file decrypted. It wasn't a report. It was a mirror copy of a hidden partition on the OmniLex servers. Anya, with her unparalleled skill, hadn't just audited her own company's systems, she had found a backdoor into their clients. And what she found was damning. The screen in the hangar filled with lines of code, emails, and secret audio recordings. Anya had discovered that OmniLex, under the guise of providing security, had planted an unauthorized surveillance protocol in the police data systems of every city they served. This protocol wasn't just collecting crime data. It was scraping personal information, financial records, medical histories, private messages, and selling it to data brokers and political campaigns. Worse, she found evidence that OmniLex was intentionally manipulating its predictive algorithm. They were creating ghost crime reports in minority neighborhoods to artificially inflate the risk scores, thereby justifying larger police budgets and, consequently, more lucrative contracts for themselves. It was a monstrous, self-perpetuating machine of oppression for profit. And Anya had found the kill switch. The final file in the packet was an email she had drafted but never sent. It was addressed to a trusted journalist at the Wall Street Journal. The subject line was, "They're not predicting crime. They're creating it." She hadn't been killed because a racist cop panicked. She hadn't been killed because an algorithm flagged her. She was targeted. OmniLex's internal surveillance must have detected her breach. They saw she had their entire criminal enterprise in her hands. They couldn't risk her exposing them. So, they used their own corrupt system as a weapon. They likely sent an anonymous tip to Vance and Galloway, 2 volatile, known racists, about a suspicious vehicle driven by a potentially armed black woman. They pointed the gun, knowing the officer's bigotry would pull the trigger. General Sharma stared at the screen, at his daughter's final, brilliant move. She had sacrificed herself, but she had left him the weapon to win the war. The grief in his heart was now forged into something cold, hard, and unbreakable. It was the righteous fury of a father who had just learned his daughter died not just as a victim, but as a soldier in a war no one else knew was being fought. "They didn't just murder my daughter," he whispered to the silent room. "They murdered a patriot who was trying to save this country from itself. And she left us the evidence to prove it." He turned to his aide. "Get me the Attorney General. Get me the chairs of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. And get me the New York Times. The war goes public. Now." The story didn't just break, it detonated. The files Anya collected, dubbed the Rook_E8 papers by the media, were a firestorm that swept through the nation, incinerating the carefully constructed walls of corporate power and police impunity. It was no longer a story about one tragic shooting. It was a story about a shadow government run by a tech company, a system that monetized racism and assassinated those who dared to expose it. The fallout was swift and brutal. OmniLex's stock plummeted to zero before trading was halted. Julian Croft, facing charges of racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and treason, began naming every politician and police chief on his payroll. Dozens of arrests were made across the country. Congress immediately launched a series of televised hearings that gripped the nation, with lawmakers from both parties expressing outrage at the depth of the corruption. In Phoenix, the trial of Sergeant Vance and Officer Galloway became a national spectacle. But their defense, already crippled by the drone footage, completely collapsed in the face of Anya's evidence. They were no longer just rogue cops, they were assassins, pawns in a deadly corporate game. They were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But General Sharma knew that convictions were not the same as change. He used his influence, working from the shadows, to ensure the momentum wasn't lost. He funded independent watchdog groups, provided anonymous support to whistleblowers, and used his daughter's findings to help craft the Dr. Anya Sharma Digital Civil Rights Act, a landmark piece of legislation aimed at regulating the use of AI and predictive algorithms in law enforcement. Months later, the Arizona sun felt different. It was still hot, but it felt less like a hammer and more like a spotlight. A crowd of thousands gathered in a newly renovated public square in downtown Phoenix. At its center stood a beautiful, abstract sculpture of polished steel that resembled a rising bird or a complex wave of data. A plaque at its base read, "The Dr. Anya Sharma Plaza for Civic Justice. Truth is the only algorithm that matters." General Kailan Sharma, in a simple dark suit, stood at a podium. Beside him were Zara and Leo. The boy looked older now, his eyes no longer empty but filled with a quiet, knowing gravity. "Anya Sharma was my daughter," the general began, his voice steady, carrying across the silent crowd. "But she was also your daughter, your sister, your neighbor. She was a brilliant mind and a loving mother who believed that technology should serve humanity, not enslave it. She saw a deep flaw in our system, a cancer of greed and prejudice, and she tried to fix it." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Her death was an immeasurable tragedy. But her legacy must be an unwavering commitment to change. We have put men in prison, we have passed a new law. But laws are only as strong as the people who demand they be enforced. The work is not done. It is never done. He stepped back, and Zara moved to the microphone. "My sister didn't want to be a martyr," she said, her voice thick with emotion but strong. "She wanted to watch her son grow up. She wanted to solve complex problems and eat mango sorbet on a hot day. They took that from her. They took that from us. We cannot let them take it from anyone else. We must demand transparency. We must demand accountability. We must hold the powerful to the light." Finally, Leo stepped forward. He was small, but he stood tall. He looked directly at the bank of news cameras, his small hands gripping the sides of the podium. "My mom was a superhero," he said, his voice clear and pure. "She fought monsters that hide in computers. She told me that you can't fight monsters with silence. You have to be loud." He took a deep breath. "So, please, be loud for my mom. Tell her story. Don't let them forget her." The screen fades to black. White text appears. Her name was Dr. Anya Sharma. Her fight is now our fight. If you believe that truth should be the only algorithm, that justice is not a privilege but a right for all, then do not let this be the end of the conversation. The systems that failed Anya are still in place. The change starts with us. It starts now. Share this story. Discuss it with your friends and family. Demand action from your elected officials. In the comments below, share one way you will help hold power accountable. Let's build a legacy worthy of her sacrifice. Comment, respect, to honor all voices fighting for a better world. Follow this channel for updates on the Sharma Act and other stories of civic justice. Because silence is complicity. And it's time to be loud.